This week on Quality Digest Live, we'll find out how to handle the coming Internet of Things data explosion.
That's right. Plus, accessing the zen of lean through mindfulness at work. That and more when we come back.
Welcome back to Quality Digest Live for January 23rd, 2015. QDL is your weekly look at who and what is making the news in the world of quality. I'm Mike Richmond, publisher of Quality Digest.
And I'm Quality Digest editor-in-chief, Dirk Ducharme. Well, unless you, I don't know, strip naked and walk out into the desert and run with the coyotes, consider yourself connected to the internet.
Yeah.
That's right. Everything's connected to the internet. Your phone.
Even those cacti.
Yeah, watch out for those IoT cacti.
Okay.
Your phone's connected, your car's connected, your toaster oven is connected, your glasses, and if you're wearing wearable tech, maybe even your clothes are connected. And if you work in manufacturing, most likely your manufacturing equipment and your products are connected. So imagine that the status of every machine operation or every measurement, maybe even who is operating a machine on the production floor, is sent out over the internet to be vacuumed up by your company's servers, along with the information from the internet connected to your products you sell. The Internet of Things, that's right, but that's what we're talking about, and it's terrific, right? But think of all that data. What do you do with it? Do you even know what to do with it? Do you have a strategy to deal with the terabytes of data that your company's internet-connected products and equipment are handing to you? Well, with us via Skype today is Rob Harrison of LNS Research and the author of the article, Why Quality Management Leaders Need an IoT Strategy Now. Thanks for joining us, Rob.
It's a pleasure. Good morning, gentlemen.
Hey there.
Good morning.
So, Rob, in your article, you mentioned that nearly half, I think you said 47%, half of manufacturing professionals don't understand the Internet of Things. Why is that, do you think, and what are the repercussions of that lack of knowledge?
Well, yes, you're absolutely right. We're talking at about 44, 47% of quality professionals don't understand the Internet of Things. But to be fair, and put that into context for those quality professionals, it really is in the context of their operations and of their organization and of their market. So, everyone's likely heard of programmable learning thermostats, etc. But really what we're describing here is the impact on quality professionals and a potential deluge of data that's going to be coming back to them from their smart connected products. And to break down the rest of that survey, which incidentally was conducted across around 2,000 said professionals, 21% have an interest and they've begun some investigations. So around about 15% do understand and they see the impact on themselves, whereas 10% are rapidly pursuing it, and a much smaller fraction of those surveyed have started to heavily invest and accelerate in their activities around it. So the reason that these professionals don't necessarily understand the Internet of Things in their context is because thinking through the process, we suddenly have a number of smart connected products that have the capability to push back phenomenal amounts of data around performance and reliability of those products in the field. So the implications are, of course, that, traditionally we're expecting information to come back from the field via complaints or perhaps from warranty infractions, whatever it might be. All of a sudden, we have a window on exactly what's occurring out there with our products, essentially in real time.
And that data that's coming back, I mean, I think you said that that examining that data, looking at data is more than simply, let's say, monitoring the health and performance of your, let's say, your quality management system, which is something that a lot of people talk about, a lot of people do. But you're talking about gleaning actionable data that you can actually do something with. I guess what you mean is be proactive. And what exactly do you mean by that?
Absolutely, and really, we're talking about a potential deluge of data coming back to the organization. But one benefit that we do have from our perspective on the Internet of Things, it's not really truly like another ubiquitous term at the moment, which is big data. which is fundamentally unstructured and nebulous. We're talking about structured data coming back to us in a way that we've anticipated, so we know the shape of it, which means that we can align that with expected performance and reliability and with expected behavior. But of course, we have to then work through that data. We need a way to understand what that data is telling us in the context of our quality management processes, and then of course drive that back through the organization to be able to take that data and make it actionable and track it, ideally through a closed loop process and approach to quality, which means that those elements of the organizations, those departments, flowing all the way back up through the value chain and essentially finding its way to engineering and to product design, arrives at the right place. But it's traceable, it's actionable, and we might also consider another layer that we need to put upon this. Perhaps that also needs to go through some kind of risk screening, so we're ultimately focusing our efforts in the right place.
Rob, what you're touching on here really is elements of management and strategy. Management, of course, being responsible for the broader strategy of the organization. So when you say that quality management leaders have to have an IoT strategy, exactly, and what do you mean by that? I mean, what kind of strategy are we talking about, and what do you think that might look like?
Well, many organizations that we talk to will already express the fact that they're somewhat data rich and information or ultimately intelligence poor. They have a great deal to deal with already in their current circumstances. Now, ensuring that we have harmonized processes and closed loops within our enterprise quality management efforts really does help that. And organizations that have taken steps in that direction already are in quite the advantageous position. Essentially, the infrastructure is in place. It's about getting your house in order. So the first element of strategy would be education. And if I'm in the business of manufacturing engineered products that lend themselves to being smart, connected products, then it makes sense for me to ensure that I'm ready for the data coming back to me. So having those processes not only in play but also working effectively for you is going to be very important. It's essentially about getting your house in order. Now, we're not panic mongering here and saying, if you're not ready in the next 3 to 6 months, then all hell will break loose. That certainly isn't the case. But we need to be talking about strategies for something that is fairly reasonably touted to be on the near horizon.
And Rob, do you have an example, either a hypothetical example or maybe a real example, of how a company is making good use of all of this data, implementing a strategy?
Absolutely, and in fact, some of the hard data really is wrapped around the Internet of Things driving optimization at the moment. Some of the obvious candidates, and they're in play, are aerospace and defense manufacturers that are using information via IoT mechanisms to optimize and improve actual products in the field, but of course that information doesn't get lost. It's all going to be utilized and driven through the quality management processes in an organization too. We'll all be aware of certain an electronic automotive manufacturer where firmware can be automatically updated and changes or reprogramming pushed out to those. But in the same breath, we also see that particular manufacturer being able to notify back to their own organization of particular failures within systems in their vehicles. Now, that, of course, is going to expand and increase rapidly. So what we're seeing in real terms, though, and this is a clear indicator, is product lifecycle management products are responding to customer demands to weave into their products the mechanism to be able to accept and drive in a traceable manner the outcome of that actionable data that's coming back by virtue of the Internet of Things and smart connected products.
Great. And Rob, I believe there's more articles on Internet of Things on the LNS Research website. The survey you talked about, is that available on the website as well?
Absolutely, we essentially operate a social research model, and you are able to access and participate in that survey. And of course, more people that do so that makes us very happy indeed. There's a great deal of research in things and engineered smart connected products, and of course, a great deal to come. This is something that is rapidly evolving. And I'm sure that you'll agree that given the way that technology advances these days, it really is something that a small amount of effort spent educating yourself now will pay dividends in the future.
Indeed. Well, Rob Harrison of LNS Research, thanks for joining us this morning, taking time away from your day. And if you want more information, it's lnsresearch.org. lnsresearch.com. So go out there and read up some more on IoT. Thanks, Rob, for joining us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Rob. Yeah, good stuff there. Thanks, Dirk. And thanks, Rob, for joining us on the show, talking about the Internet of Things. Really good stuff. Actually, going to be kind of getting back to that a little bit.
In just a little bit.
In a little bit later on the show, so stick around for that. But before we do that, Dirk, let's take a moment. Let's be mindful of where we are.
I love those words.
Let's listen to the rhythm of our breathing, because
be in the present.
Be in the present. It's a gift. There you go. Well, we're going to talk now about the Mindful Ohno, an article written by Kevin Meyer that appeared in Thursday's issue of Quality Digest Daily. Well, Dirk, mindfulness and lean are two great things that go great together. They're like the chocolate and peanut butter of continuous improvement, right?
There you go.
If you think about it. Kevin Meyer is a lean authority. You can really call him a guru, I think. And he's also, as we learned in this piece, a practitioner of meditation. It makes a lot of sense because one practice supports the other in a large measure. And I'll explain what I mean by that here in a moment. Mindfulness in this context means shutting down to whatever extent you can, possibly, that constant flood of stimuli that bombards our brains pretty much every single minute of every waking second, right? I mean, all the time, it's happening. I've tried to do this myself, to still the mind and to calm that torrent of thoughts. And it's tough when you're a rationalist who thinks you're defined by your thoughts. Now, you're not. Anybody will tell you we're not defined as human beings, as souls, by our thoughts, but for those of us who are rationalists, many times that's the illusion that we fall into and that we can struggle with. The idea that we have to birth these thoughts all the time and process them to be fully human. It's not really the case. But when you still the mind, if you really get into this and you're able to still the mind and limit all those worries and fears and concerns that are often our normal state of being, you start to experience reality in a very different way. And proponents would say it's a truer way. When you can breathe and slow down and really observe what's happening around you, and even more importantly to you, that's really key, what's happening around you and to you, you begin to get the real benefits, the real personal benefits of mindfulness, intentional, grounded mindfulness. But back to the application of that and mindfulness in terms of a process improvement approach, right? In that world that we all live in. Meyer in his article talks about something that we've mentioned before in the show, and Dirk, I know you've talked about it at length too, the Ohno circle. This idea that Taiichi Ohno had that, managers, and in most cases these are young managers, proteges, will go out to the floor and instead of going out there and starting making changes, they'll just sit mindfully. And they'll observe and they'll listen and they'll start to feel and begin to be imbued with the idea of what's really going on, what the sounds and the sights and the process and the rhythms of that chain, of that supply chain or that assembly line may be in real time. When you do that, again, and it's mindfulness, it really is the same idea of stilling the mind and being able to process the truisms that are coming to you. When you do that, you can get away from the bombardment of all the other stuff that doesn't matter. The Ohno circle is designed to let the practitioner breathe, look and see what's going on before you start to make any decisions on changes. Those of us in America want to just roll up our sleeves and make changes all the time, really quickly. And if you do that, you're oftentimes going to make the wrong choice and you're going to make things worse. The Ohno circle and the idea of mindfulness is designed to, again, allow you to step back, breathe, see what's going on, and make better, more informed choices as to how we can improve anything. I think it's a really wise thing, and I think it's an interesting angle that Kevin Meyer explores here, is this idea that mindfulness and lean really go hand in hand, and they have very similar underlying processes that go into that help you improve.
Right. I mean, I think a lot of people just get, it's like, oh, new age mumbo jumbo. But if you think about it, all he's really saying is that slow down.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really what it comes down to
Yeah.
is sometimes you get so caught up in trying to solve the problem that you don't take time to actually just sit there and just kind of absorb what's going on around. I mean, you can call it mindfulness, you can call it medication, but really what it comes down to is just stopping, slowing down, listening, looking, taking in what's going on around you before you start to make decisions. You can't make a decision in a vacuum, and sometimes we're moving so quickly that we're trying to make decisions before we really absorb what the situation is.
Yeah, and that's the brilliance of the Ohno circle, you know, that Taiichi Ohno came up with that idea that you're going to do that, and you're going to just sit, and it's hard. You know, I haven't done it, but I can imagine. Tried some meditation. It's very hard to still your mind. You're thinking about a zillion things. You're thinking about your job, your boss, your husband, your wife, your finances, politics, whatever you're thinking about. I mean, it's hard to not think about that stuff in any context, but especially when you're on the job and you're trying to focus on what's going on. Still the mind, get all that stuff away from you, listen, hear, see, feel what's happening, and you're gonna have a truer insight into what's really going on. Really good advice there.
Yeah. I'm trying to get the deflated footballs and the Patriots out of my head. I can't get it out of my head.
Good luck with that.
Those soft footballs are
That's
just
right.
driving me up the wall. All right. Well, gone are the days when a manufacturer bought supplies from a local vendor, built the entire product in-house, and delivered it to its distributors via their own trucks. Well, today, many hands and companies touch the materials required to get your finished product to market. Because of that, much of the quality process is out of your control. I mean, you all know that. And yet, if your finished product is faulty, guess where the buck stops? You can't say, oh, well, my supplier built the product wrong or delivered it late. It's like, it's your customer. If they don't get your product on time, if your product is faulty, it's your fault, and you can't make excuses. So it's important to keep a handle on quality throughout your supply chain. The problem is discovering the root cause of a supply chain problem is really difficult given the number of suppliers you might have, the geography involved. So what do? Well, I'm glad you asked that question, because also with us via Skype today is Joe Hum of Sparta Systems and the author of an article this week, Build Strong Relationships with Suppliers Through Automated Auditing. Hi, Joe. How are you this morning?
I'm good, thanks, Dirk. Thanks for having me on.
Terrific.
Our pleasure.
Supplier audits, that's a lot of what your article talks about is supplier audits. They've been around for a long time. They're an important part of an enterprise quality assurance activities. You refer to automated audits in your article. How are these types of supplier audits changing the game for original equipment manufacturers?
Yeah, and I think your lead into that is the important part, right? A lot of these manufacturers are changing the game with respect to where their focus is, right? So when you look at where they're focusing, a lot of them are focusing their time, energy, and efforts on innovating new products, working on the marketing and the sales aspect of things, and in turn are basically outsourcing a lot of the manufacturing and onboarding new suppliers to help them fulfill the needs of those different innovative new products. So the reality is they now have changed the focus of their organization, but that doesn't abdicate their responsibility to the suppliers and contract manufacturers, because the suppliers are providing the inputs to their product, and the CMOs are obviously developing products with their brands on them. So the best way to do that is to really look at those suppliers from the point of view, and the contract manufacturers from the point of view that they're partners. And the best way to partner with someone is to go out and to really use audits and information and so forth to help get all the facts and the information on the table. So when you can take a solution or a system out to your CMO or out to your supplier, collect all the facts about the different things that are going on across the business, get calibrated with that partner on how they're building your product or how they're creating the inputs into your newly innovated product, you can ultimately change the conversation to be more focused on what are the things that we need to collectively correct, or what are the things that we need to jointly focus our time on in order to successfully deliver our products out to the marketplace. And if you have an automated audit process in place, that ultimately helps you drive efficiencies, collect the information you need, and then really change that conversation to how do we align on issues, priorities, strategy, et cetera. It's less about how do we go out and collect that information.
Yeah, and it always comes back to the data. I mean, everybody's concerned about managing data. We just talked about it earlier in the show, and we're going to talk about it more later in the show. But what kind of data, Joe, is important to acquire from your suppliers, do you think? And how best can you interpret it once you do acquire it?
Yeah, that's a great question. The reality is the world today is moving into an evidence-based management approach, right? Everyone wants to take that information. They then need to use their knowledge and experience and apply it to that data along with the context of the information. So if you're out there collecting, observations via audits or other means to interact with your suppliers or your contract manufacturers, all of that information should now be bubbling up into a scorecard. And typically what we see from a scorecard perspective is things like the number of corrective action requests or, the closure time for those requests. And then also going out to get the voice of the actual plant or factory in and of itself to understand how they're interacting with their suppliers. And then on top of that, the on-time delivery. Now, those are just a few of the different measures. So then you can take that information and you can integrate it together to come up with what I'll call a risk number, right? And you can start to look at those risk numbers based on material, based on manufacturer, based on the different manufacturing locations, and you can start to get across the different dimensions of the business. Now, once you start to get to those risk profiles, you can figure out how you want to distribute that risk across your business. So say, for example, you have a supplier that's delivering a particular material and you've identified that it's high risk. You may want to switch to a different supplier delivering the same material that's low risk, and that helps you ensure that the inputs into your manufacturing process are as low risk as possible while you're out there collaborating with your supplier to remediate issues and so forth for those ones that may be high risk.
Let's roll up our sleeves a little bit, Joe, and talk about some of the tactical aspects of this. For instance, the cloud. What are the advantages of cloud-based solutions, as you're talking about, for these tasks, these types of tasks?
Yeah, so what we're seeing across the industry is organizations really want to try to drive operational efficiencies. And the best way to do that is to really have consistent processes in place for how you interact with your different suppliers and contract manufacturers. So the best way to do that is to use the cloud to scale those different processes and ensure they're consistent across the board. At the same time, as you're interacting with those different suppliers and contract manufacturers, if you're using the cloud, you're able to ultimately send information or electronic records back and forth between that supplier and your manufacturing facility, and that information doesn't really have to, it's not really at the mercy of, let's say, snail mail or fax or things like that. On top of it, it goes back to the data as well. As those records are transferring back and forth, you can ensure that you've got a consistent set of data landing in one centralized repository, such that all of that information can be aggregated, bubbled up, and looked at in real time. So again, you can continually look at where your priorities should be or what your agenda should be across all your different manufacturing facilities.
Hey, Joe, quickly, what stage of the supplier life cycle should users be getting into or considering some of these automated auditing solutions?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, what we're seeing is a lot of organizations, they're driving suppliers through an onboarding process. And as they drive them through that process, one of the key steps or important steps along the way is to go out and audit and again, collect all of that information up front. So you know what you're getting into when you're building this partnership or building this relationship. So the reality is all of these different audits should really be done up front, right when you're onboarding those suppliers. So you're establishing what that relationship should look like right off the bat, making sure that you've got all of the information available and setting the tone or the context for how the relationship should operate moving thereon.
Okay. Well, Joe, thanks for joining us this morning. There is going to be a webinar that covers this topic in a lot more depth. We'll throw it up on the screen there. This is next week.
Yes, right. Tuesday.
Next Tuesday, yes. January 27th, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, utilizing enterprise quality management to optimize the supply chain. Joe will be there along with myself moderating and to dig into this a little bit more. Joe, thanks for joining us.
Very good. Thank you for having me.
Sure, no problem.
We'll see you on Tuesday, Joe.
See you Tuesday, yep.
All right.
Sounds good.
Good stuff there. And hey, sign up for that webinar if you haven't already. There's a link in the article, Joe's article, about how you can go ahead and do that. All right. Well, an interesting news item that we're going to close the show with this week, caught our eye this week, came to us from Frost & Sullivan, titled Advancements in Steering Technology, Quicken Journey Through Automated Driving. the piece ran in Monday's issue of Quality Digest Daily. The research from Frost and Sullivan underpinning this story discusses a few different technologies that are advancing more or less at the same time to change the way human beings use their automobiles. Steer-by-wire, also known as drive-by-wire, is cited by the research as a technology expected to penetrate many new car models in the future. Steer-by-wire technology replaces many mechanical linkages, such as the steering column or the accelerator/brake pedals, with electrical or electromechanical systems. Of course, venerable old electric power systems, power steering systems, I should say, EPS systems, including hydraulic and electro-hydraulic systems, are still prevalent. The most advanced and innovative of these systems currently or imminently assist drivers with things like lane keeping or crosswind compensation. Some automotive OEMs with EPS systems across their brands are actively addressing mitigation strategies during so-called loss of steering assist situations, and those are times when power systems such as steering may fail. According to Frost and Sullivan's findings, these auto manufacturers are also making progress in the development of technologies geared towards truly autonomous driving. And how quickly those developing steer-by-wire systems can address these loss of steering assist issues, I think is going to go a long way towards answering when and in what form automated driving is going to come to the market. So interesting stuff, and it's interesting as well that we're covering this right now, Dirk, because just yesterday, it's interesting because our very own Ryan Day visited the Ford Motor Company's all-new Research and Innovation Center in Palo Alto to learn about their so-called smart mobility plan. And we've been working with Ford for a good long while now about many of their innovations, and their Palo Alto initiative is really a really interesting level in which they're taking this. And I think that Ryan has been actively involved with Ford, and Ryan is going to join us now on the show to talk about some of the things he found out down at Ford yesterday.
That's right. We call him our Ford correspondent because it seems like he's going to Ford almost all the time. So what did you learn down in Palo Alto?
As you know, yesterday was the official grand opening of Ford's Research and Innovation Lab in Palo Alto. For the viewers that don't know, Palo Alto, California, is dead in the heart of Silicon Valley. And that's important. Mm-hmm. That's real important to the whole, all the initiatives and to the actual physical location of the lab. Being the official Ford correspondent, I've got to say that I've been to several Ford events, including last week, the North American International Auto Show, which Ford pays my freight to go there. They don't have anything to do with what I write, but they do. At any rate, the difference between those activities, those events, and what's going on in Dearborn is hugely different from what's going on in Palo Alto.
Well, in Palo Alto, that's the main thing they were talking about was smart mobility, right?
Smart mobility is one of the core aspects of the Research and Innovation Lab, yes.
And what is that exactly? I mean, what does Ford mean by smart mobility? It's more than just cars, right?
Yes, and that's one of the things that we found out very quickly was that at last year's Consumer Electronics Show, automotive electronics had a huge presence there, and that's not normal for the electronics show. So it was at the CES that Ford announced their smart mobility program or smart mobility plan. And what the plan entails was 25 global research and innovation projects. These were projects that were, oddly enough, they used open source innovation. They put out the call and people presented research projects wherein they would be able to learn and explore everything from mobility, and that's a tough one to wrap your head around, autonomous vehicles, as well as big data.
Well, the thing that you told me that I thought was really interesting is that it was more than just like, smart cars. I mean, they're looking at, bicycle traffic. They're looking at what ride sharing. It's kind of the whole urban
very much so.
experience, the whole urban mobility, I guess, experience, right? I mean, it's all these things kind of all wrapped. They're looking like it's like a big picture.
Very much so. What we saw at the Research and Innovation Lab in Palo Alto was that it was a real eye-opener into how far in the future Ford is looking, and how broad they're looking. And when they say mobility, and so many of us was like, well, what does that mean? What does mobility mean? Well, as Ford has been saying, Mark Fields, the president and CEO of Ford, said that we don't consider Ford just an automotive company. We're a mobility company. So whereas in the past that meant a horse and carriage, and now it means cars, well, maybe the Muni, maybe the autonomous vehicle, who knows where in the future. But as long as we're using cars now, what is mobility? What are the challenges in mobility? And what are the challenges going to be, well, right now, 10 years from now, 50 years from now? So while parking, congestion, sustainability, those are all huge, and sustainability and urbanization, like you were saying, the denser cities get, the more those problems are going to be evident. And so Ford is really taking an aggressive stance in innovating to mitigate those issues.
Yeah, I think, well, I was just going to say, I think that to me, I always looked at this as being really a piece of Internet of Things. I mean, the idea that mobility and the idea of Internet of Things is that, human beings want to be connected, like you say, other than if you're with the coyotes in the desert, like you were saying before. I mean, you want to be connected. So it makes sense that a mobility company like Ford is going to play a big role in that going forward, that they want to make sure that their customers are going to be able to be connected and use the tools they want to use when they want to use them, wherever they are.
And we'll wrap up with this. I mean, so, Ford is like got their little fingers out and all sorts of little things other than automobile. What's in it for them? I mean, where's the payoff for them?
That's a multifaceted answer there. And in the immediate consumer experience, for instance, when they use connectivity in their vehicles, and they've got the Sync 3 information and entertainment system in their vehicles now, in the 2015 vehicles, and that will integrate your smart device, your car. I'm not sure if it yet will incorporate anything else you have in your house, your smart meter, for your heating, etc. But they're looking at it.
Yeah.
They're looking at it. But being as they integrate your smart device, there are apps that will be coming online that you can customize your personal driving experience, at least in the Sync 3. So that's immediate. In the future, this is why I say it's so forward thinking, because I honestly think at this point they're not sure. Yeah.
Okay.
But
they're scoping everything out.
Yep.
All right. Yeah. And I'm guessing you're going to be writing a few articles about this.
We will have several. Each one of us had, as we talked about this event and prior events, each one of us had a particular interest. So it'll be fun to bring that information forward in articles, and we'll be doing that in the months to come.
Okay. All right. Well, Ryan, thanks for joining us. That's our very own Ryan Day, our Ford correspondent.
That's right.
We ship them around the world to Ford events.
That's right, and that was a good one in Palo Alto. It was right in our own backyard, so it's great.
International Auto Show as well.
That's right.
All right. Well, that is the end of our show today. So thanks to all of you for joining us. Thanks also to Rob Harrison of LNS Research, as well as Joe Hum.
Joe Hum, and don't forget about that webinar. We got a webinar coming up for you on Tuesday. A really interesting kind of deep dive into the whole idea of automated auditing. So check that out on Tuesday, the 27th of January, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. So.
And once again, Ryan, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you back in the office. Yes. All right.
Thanks, everybody.
You all have a great weekend.
See you. Bye.